Greetings and welcome to the 70th episode of Retro Rant. It's Amstrad time again with yet another text adventure, The Hobbit, based on the book by Tolkien and released by Melbourne House, initially for the ZX Spectrum in 1982 and later on for most of the 8-bits, with the Amstrad CPC getting a port an eternity later in 1985. Personally, I quite liked Tolkien's books back in the day, although I am getting less and less enthusiastic about them as time goes by. The reason I chose to play this game is because of my endless quest to discover fun and playable text adventures in the 21st century. This has proven to be a thankless task since, if you're a regular of this channel, most of the text adventures we have reviewed so far have the same problems. Fighting against a parser, cruel gameplay, and intimidating walls of text. Well, I didn't own The Hobbit back in the day, but it is considered one of the most accomplished best-selling adventures, so I just had to give it a try. In this game, you control Bilbo Baggins, who is a hobbit. You know, these short, cheerful guys with their feet hygiene problems that like to save the world once every 10 hours. In a delicious morality lesson, you must seek the dragon's lair and steal his treasure, while also protecting Thorin the dwarf. The graphics of The Hobbit have a certain old-school charm, although they might look childish to a younger gamer. For me, they invoke a huge amount of nostalgia because I played games like Sultan's Maze back in the day that had similar graphics. Of course, this being a text adventure, there is no sound, so be prepared to have a bland adventuring session or alternatively use your own generic fantasy soundtrack. And let's talk about the controls which can make or break a text adventure. I have to admit I have mixed feelings about The Hobbit. Although it is not as frustrating as Doomsday Lost Echoes, it certainly feels that performing the actions you want to is a thankless task. The game boasted of a highly advanced parser for the time, which I do not doubt, but playing this never felt natural, but more like an uphill struggle. There are some handy abbreviations here, but not enough. Talking to characters, Gandalf, for example, usually produces the highly inspired "you talk to Gandalf" response, and the same thing happens when examining objects, making the world and the characters seem hollow and superficial. The game world is quite big, but it mostly consists of empty locations, and drawing a map is essential if you don't want to miss some important items. I don't like this thing as well, especially in adventures, since the tedium of making maps, combined with the backtracking and the hollow feeling of the screens, sucks the joy out of the game. If that weren't enough, the constant redrawing of the various pictures starts to get very tedious after a while. Waiting is important in this game, and some puzzles can be solved through choosing the right timing. Typing help offers a nice subtle hint, and I found this very advanced for an early 80s text adventure. You're also supposed to take control of the other characters to solve some puzzles, but I couldn't figure out how this worked even after reading the manual, so feel free to tell me in the comments. The puzzles are quite mundane and unsatisfactory, and if you have read the book, it is like reading a walkthrough, although this is not necessarily a bad thing. And I should mention here that back in the day, the game included a copy of The Hobbit, which is a fantastic thing. The game also boasts that the NPCs have a life of their own, and they indeed move around, taking your items without asking, giving them back when they feel like it, and they feel more like a nuisance rather than being in a living world. But if you always wanted to be the pushover of Gandalf or hear Thorin sing about gold for all eternity, this is definitely a game for you. The Hobbit is not without its merits though. Overall, it has a charming mix of simplicity and sophistication that can be appealing to some players if they're willing to overlook the game's problems. So that's it for now, and I'll see you next time!